If you came up to me on the street and said, "Hey kid, what's your favorite type of ARPG build?" I'd tell you Glass Cannon. But my second favorite are aura characters, or characters where you just turn on their spells or abilities and then go for a pleasant stroll through your enemies while you destroy them. Today we're looking at Boulder Hurricane Druid. We're going to use the special effect from Dolmen Stone to make every boulder we cast orbit us and damage enemies when we have Hurricane active. And then we're also going to layer Stance Dancing between Werebear and Werewolf on top of that to get a bunch of additional damage multipliers. First we're going to go over the skill and Paragon boards, then gear and rune selection, and lastly playstyle for different types of content. For basic abilities we're going to take Claw with Enhanced. This is going to be our main skill to shapeshift into werewolf form. We don't take any of the core skills, so instead 1 point into Heart of the Wild and 3 points into Wild Impulses. We're going to be turning our boulder into both a werebear and a core skill through special effects on our items. In defensive skills, we're going to be putting 3 points into Ancestral Fortitude for some extra resistance, 3 points into Backlash for more damage when we use our defensive skill, which is Earthen Bulwark with Enhanced. This is going to give you a barrier shield and also make you unstoppable for 3 seconds, so be sure to save it for when you're crowd controlled. A lot of stuff to get at the Wrath node. We're going to get 1 point into Hurricane with Enhanced and Savage. That's going to slow and weaken enemies around us. 5 points into our main skill Boulder with Enhanced and Natural. That's going to give us some extra crowd control and crit chance on it when fortified. And we're also going to get 3 points into Crushing Earth for some extra damage to crowd-controlled enemies, and 3 points into Stone Guard for extra damage when fortified. We're also going to put a point into Neurotoxin to get to Envenom for 3 points. This is going to give us extra critical strike damage against poisoned enemies from our Creeper. And then we're going to get 1 point into Mending, and 3 points into Provocation. This is going to give us guaranteed overpowers every 12 seconds. Down here at the ultimate node, we're going to put 3 points into Defiance for some extra damage versus elites, 3 points into Natural Disaster for extra damage versus crowd-controlled or vulnerable enemies, 3 points into Circle of Life for some extra healing when we cast, and 3 points into Resonance for extra nature magic damage, and triple extra damage when we dance between bear and wolf form. We're also going to get 5 points into Cataclysm with Prime and Supreme. That's going to increase its duration and make enemies vulnerable. We're going to be using this combined with a ring that gives us double damage and unlimited spirit when it's active. So it's really important to try and get this cooldown as low as possible. We're also going to get 3 points into Catastrophe for extra damage after we cast it. And then 3 points into Quick Shift for extra damage while dancing between wolf and bear. For our key passive, we're going to take Bestial Rampage. This is going to give us a pretty much constant 30% increased damage and 20% increased attack speed. And see how it says both bonuses persist as long as you're in either animal form and are lost for 3 seconds in human form. So Hurricane, Poison Creeper, and Cataclysm will all put you in human form when you cast them. So be sure to use one of the others, Bulwark, Claw, or Boulder, within 3 seconds of using one of these 3. That way you won't lose any damage or attack speed bonuses from this. Full disclosure, I am not good at building Paragon boards, so I pirated this one from Maxroll. I'll put a link in the description below so you can go copy theirs too. I'll also show each board on screen for a few seconds and talk about where all the glyphs go, so you can pause and copy that way if you want to. The starter board is set up like this and gets the Dominate rune for extra overpower damage and even more damage to overpowered enemies. The second board is the Survival Instincts node. This gives us extra damage based on the difference in life between us and the enemy, and it uses the Outmatch glyph to give bonuses to Grizzly and Battleworn Hide for extra bear damage and extra life. To the left of that, we're using the Ancestral Guidance board that gives us extra damage when we spend a lot of spirit. And the glyph on here is Earth and Sky. That's giving bonuses to Guidance and Harmony for extra damage. The fourth board is Earth and Devastation. This gives us extra crit damage based on our damage to crowd-controlled enemies. And it's using the Fang and Claw glyph to give bonuses to Earth and Power for extra Earth damage, and Crushing Earth for extra damage to crowd-controlled enemies. Perfect, right? The last board is Heightened Malice. This is why we grab the Poison Creeper Companion. Extra damage when there's poison enemies nearby. And this one uses the Spirit Glyph for extra critical damage and extra damage to already crit enemies. Alright, here we are at the gear. First off, the helm, Vasily's Prayer. Your Earth skills are now also Werebear skills and fortify you when you cast them based on your maximum health. Very important. You want to make your Boulder a Werebear skill so that it can take advantage of all the Werebear damage multipliers. For chest piece, you can't beat Shroud. One extra skill to every single passive is just too powerful for anybody to pass up. Plus the extra life makes it great for overpower builds. For gloves we have the Metamorphic Stone aspect. This is very important. This is what makes Boulder a core skill. So on gloves you can also get plus to core skills, plus I went for a big dose of critical strike chance. For your pants, you're going to want something to bolster your defenses. I went for life, armor, more life, and then hurricane duration is great. It's a real quality of life so you don't have to keep reapplying hurricane. For your boots, you're going to want Wild Heart Hunger. This gives you a huge damage bonus when you shift between Werebear and Werewolf constantly. So you need to keep the damage bonus active by constantly switching between Claw and Boulder when you're fighting enemies. Otherwise it's going to fall off and you're going to lose a huge chunk of your damage. For the weapon, you want a nice big two-hander mace for a good chunk of overpower damage, plus the retaliation aspect. For the amulet, we're using Dolmen Stone. This is the main part of the build. This is what makes the boulders spin around you while you have Hurricane going. And the great thing about this is it includes Nature Magic cooldown, so that's for your Hurricane and Cataclysm. It gives you extra movement speed for a damage bonus while Hurricane's active, and it gives you an extra 30% damage for every boulder you have rotating around you. You can have up to 10, and they last 5 seconds each. So every time you cast one, it's going to spin for 5 seconds. For the first ring, we're using what I call the Thor Ring. It gives you 100% damage and unlimited spirit when Cataclysm's active. It also gives you extra movement speed and plus skills to Endless Tempest, which increases the duration of Hurricane and Cataclysm. For the second ring, we're using Hunter's Zenith. This is every 30 seconds you spend in an animal form, your next core skill is guaranteed to overpower and crit with extra damage. Casting shapeshifting skills reduces the timer, or 2 seconds if it's to a new animal form. So this is going to really reduce that 30 seconds down to maybe 5 or 6 if you're constantly switching between using Boulder and Claw and some of your other skills in combat. And you really want to make sure that you proc this often because Overpower is the main damage dealer on this build. As far as rune selection goes, I'm running Tamzal for non-channeled core skill casts, give you 20% maximum life. That's really good for overpower builds. Up here I'm running Nokyam, inflict crowd control that's not slow or chill to invoke Druid Petrify. Petrify is going to stun everything around you, make you deal extra damage to them, and refill your spirit. A lot of people like the travel 50 meters rune to proc this, but I really think the inflict crowd control rune pulls its weight quite well in a lot of situations. I really suggest you try it out if you have a chance. Real fast, I want to talk about the Thor Ring. You'll see that this is the only non-ancestral unique that I have on my build. And it's because of this damn unique modifier on the bottom. When Cataclysm's active, you gain unlimited spirit and deal between 40 and 100% increased damage. That 100% damage is big. You can see, I tried really hard to find another good one that was greater ancestral, and I did not get close. So keep an eye on that, especially See if the damage trade-off is worth it for the extra bonuses you get if you get another 4 masterworking hits on it, and make a call for yourself. I personally prefer the extra 100% damage over less and more movement speed, crit chance, willpower, etc. elsewhere. Alternatively, say you can't find a Vasili's Prayer right away, you could also use something like a Godslayer Crown with extra damage and cooldown reduction. If you don't have a Shroud, I would recommend Insatiable Fury, extra werebear stuff. And for boots, if you don't want to do the stance thing with Wildheart Hunger, even though it's a big chunk of your damage, I recommend Rakanoths. It has cooldown reduction, good resistances. I actually use these sometimes when I'm farming T4, just because everything dies so fast, you don't have time to stance to get your damage up, and you don't really need it. So the extra cooldown just makes things a little bit smoother. As far as gameplay goes, when this build is properly set up, it is a Beyblade, a meat blender for anything in T4. The basic idea is you're going to turn on your Hurricane, turn on Cataclysm, spin up a few boulders, and start running through enemies. You honestly don't even need to keep the stance damage bonus up from your boots, because everything will just die as soon as you come close to them. Should you find an elite or anything that you have trouble with, pop your Poison Creeper on them for extra damage, and just go to town. When you get to pit pushing, things actually get a little bit easier because mobs are going to stay alive long enough for you to do the wolf, bear, wolf stance on them to get extra damage. So what you're going to want to do there is dance between using Claw and Boulder, especially if you don't have Cataclysm up, so that you can regain Spirit. And then again, make sure Hurricane doesn't fall off, use your Poison Creeper on elites as needed, and wait for those giant overpower procs that are going to come both from your passives and from your ring. And then you're just going to alternate between casting Claw to get your Spirit back up, casting Boulder, and using those big overpower procs to constantly hammer enemies. Now, due to the lack of constant unstoppable, you do need to watch out for crowd control and really save your Earth and Bulwark for it. This build gets pushed around a little bit, so really keep an eye on when you're going to get frozen or feared away, and have Earth and Bulwark ready to counter that. Alright everybody, that's enough for me. I hope you enjoy the build. I hope you enjoy being a human buzzsaw and grinding through hordes of demons. And lastly, thank you guys for all the positivity and support you're pushing back my way. It really means a lot. It really inspires me to keep making these videos. So again, thank you so much, and I hope to see you on the next one.